All right, today we're going to jump into Ethereum and whether or not you should be considering a new strategy or stay with the one you've got. We're going to dive in deep. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Ethereum has been in one of those projects that, like Bitcoin, I feel like this year, everybody had such high hopes for Ethereum toward the end of the year. Now, again, the advantage is that with Ethereum, you've got some really good news coming, and that is ETH 2.0. When we go from proof of work to proof of stake, that is going to be a massive move in the environment of the ecosystem of ETH. And I think in general, when you look at the amount of ecosystem adoption, that's really where Ethereum's strength lies. And I think a lot of people, including our own Diamond Circle teams, have asked over and over, should we be repositioning and rebalancing our portfolios this year with Ethereum? What should that look like? I want to jump to a couple of stories here. This first little story is just Ethereum 2.0 testnet launch puts one step closer to reclaiming GPUs for gaming. This, of course, would be a big thing for the gamers, is that when we get to the scenario of zero impact on PC graphic cards, because you're not going to be mining any longer on Ethereum, that will make it a lot better for the world in terms of just the mining capacity, but also in general. I think GPUs, of course, NVIDIA might not love that too much, but the fact is you're going to see an opportunity here where most of this is going to go away. And the Ethereum, what they did do is they flipped on the switch on its Kintsugi testnet this week. And what does that mean? All right, well, let's start with the basics. So, which is that the Ethereum blockchain that is effectively mined with GPUs, you guys are using hardware, now is potentially going away, and all of this changes the model completely on how Ethereum is going to be obviously handling and mandating its transaction fees. So that in itself is a big deal. Now, the big question I think a lot of people are asking is, well, that's great. Is ETH 2.0 going to happen in Q1? We've talked about Q1 before on this show, and it looks like it's going to miss a date. Now, Ethereum is notorious for missing dates on a lot of their rollouts, with the exception of maybe the London hard fork, because that one was pretty much on schedule. But they have been missing dates on many of these rollouts, especially on mainnets, testnets, etc., over the years. And that has been the one concern that I think a lot of people still push on Ethereum. And just in the aspect that of what we're looking at. The other scenario that has happened this year is this, and that is that it's got some rivals. Eventually you're going to start see more and more blockchain projects that really are ramping up to take on this big issue of fees and gas fees. And of course, Avalanche is the one right here. So the rival surges 4,400% in this year's enters top 10 list. That's when Avalanche essentially moved in. We've been pointing at this one for quite some time, but you can kind of see the numbers and the data here. Opened the year at 327, hit an all-time high at $147. That's Avalanche. This is great for Avalanche, and it's also great, I think, for just the blockchain ecosystem because of the fact that it is cheaper, faster, and potentially from a smart contract standpoint could be the end-all, be-all for a system like that. The challenge that Avalanche has is still adoption and being able to convert. Now, there are a couple of advantages here that could happen for Avalanche, and the reason that this would affect Ethereum. And I want you to think about this for a second. So Avalanche has a great opportunity here, and this is why it relates to what's happening in Ethereum. Let's take a look at this for a second. Avalanche, a young project, versus Ethereum, a much more mature project. Ethereum has a large number of developers. These developers, meaning a large ecosystem, then you've got projects that layer in on top of that, and now you have this unbelievable size of entire ecosystem inside Ethereum, including the developers. But at the same time, you're seeing projects that are now, because of timing, everybody's trying to bridge that gap between Web 2.0 and Web 3. And the one project chain that I've talked about over and over on this show is Avalanche. That's their whole goal, is to take these developers, the true tech stack that's out there and has been out there building on the web for over 2 decades, and helping to transition all of that into what's happening over at Avalanche. Literally, you could see no pun intended, an avalanche of developers starting to move into Avalanche, the blockchain, and completely shift from Web 2 to Web 3. If that happens, if something like that, if we see large adoption and transition coming over from traditional tech stacks and a lot of traditional Web 2.0 projects that have been building on the internet for two decades, and you see all of that move in, now you see a potential of why Avalanche has been seeing these kind of run-ups. Let's just forget about things that they're doing to help lure in developers to compete with the traditional blockchain, kingpins being Ethereum. But all of that could really play into this if Avalanche gets some good headway on where that's going. So early this week, crypto custody, BitGo also announced this is some other things for Avalanche that is giving its institutional clients to AVAX assets launched natively on Avalanche C chain as demand for high-speed decentralized finance platform rises. That's a big one. Again, currently up. Again, why does this matter to Ethereum? Remember that Ethereum, in my opinion, when you look at Ethereum and you look at the other alternative chains that are out there, and let's just take them, the big boys. Let's look at Solana, let's look at Avalanche, let's look at Polygon. And the opportunity of those taking away potential investment strategies, meaning a certain part of the pie of Ethereum, waiting on Ethereum to go to Web 2.0. So a lot of people consider that maybe Ethereum has a lot of baked in price of where Web 2.0 is already there, meaning expectations and current price maybe have all that baked in. Could we see a little bit of a slower burn or run up on Ethereum versus some of these other chains that are starting to explode in terms of developers, adoption, and those kinds of ratios? That's why you need to really consider maybe this is the time we take a step back, look at Ethereum as a whole. Definitely not going away. Ethereum is going to be one of the stalwarts of what's going to happen in the crypto community. But there's always going to be faster, better technology. Can we see this in a year and Ethereum at that point blows up? Sure, it could. But if you're looking at Ethereum holding it for another year, literally, before we see that kind of run up, because the likelihood is we'll see the bear market hit maybe in Q3 in 2022. And if that does occur, timing-wise, not great timing for Ethereum if they roll out ETH 2.0 in Q3 or Q4 of next year. So that's my concern. And if I'm looking at short-term gains and I'm looking at potential gains between now and the end of this bear cycle, Q2, really kind of the window, what would be those potentials there? Would it be Ethereum or would I go into something like an Avalanche? My recommendation is probably going to be a little different than what you might like. Remember, we'll do these market movers. I'm pulling all this stuff together for you guys. The idea is to give you some research, some data, and then give you some insights to some of our thinking. Hopefully it sets you on the right direction. Not investment advice for you, but hopefully it is research advice on how you should take this. Here's another play that's happening over on Immutable X. So Immutable X, everybody knows about this great, this great potential they have done with these ZK rollups, and the whole idea of, again, just all of this narrative is based on reducing gas fees of Ethereum, right? So you've got Immutable X over here appointing senior executive teams with extensive tech scale-up experience. Keyword here, scale up. And with that, and I just want to kind of jump to this right here, the leading international NFT technology gaming company. Again, all this all applies to Ethereum because what we're seeing is workarounds coming to the market because of the problems that Ethereum has in terms of gas fees. We're going to talk about it, soon on one of our live streams about how you should be working around strategies to be able to go stake things like Axie Infinity, but do it in a way that you're going to have to eventually go through Ethereum, but the least amount of fees and being able to do that. That's the kind of hoops that you're having to jump through right now. And it's a really concerning situation considering that NFTs are exploding. And with NFTs exploding, it means that most people are looking for games, all those kind of things on typical projects and smart chains that haven't been the same in the past. In the past, you might have easily went over to the Ethereum network, jumped on and got into a game and no big deal, like an Axie Infinity. But now people are looking at Binance Smart Chain a lot more because of the potential and less fees. and the opportunity of those games who are not even using Ethereum as their core. So with this assignment right here with IMX, Gil Finley, who has been appointed now as the newly created Chief Operating Officer over at IMX, this is big news because it tells me that IMX, Immutable X, is positioning for a continuation of this very issue. And that is that we are going to see this narrative continue for quite some time. So as we look at Ethereum and the other scenarios that kind of play into this, I want to just pull over together our sentiment run over the past few little pulls we've done. So this one was back here on the beginning of December, sentiment holding at 72.39. It dropped a little to 71. This was after we had a little bit of that slide and then that big little flash crash right here. AMP was also kind of holding, actually, considering the situation. And then we had a little bit of a run up and again a little spike from what was that little bit of a low around 3,600. And then we spiked right back up to a little over 4,000, almost 41. Then we jumped right here to 41.23. And then we've had this sideways action since then until recently, which is where we're trading now at 41.05. So this is showing upward movement for the first time in a while. And that to me is, it's a big issue, I think, with what is happening in the space, because with Ethereum, if we can maintain that kind of movement, and we can continue to see this and actually hit that kind of number right there, which is around the 4,500 mark for the end of December, I think that would be a lot in the area of support. Do I think it's going to hold, and do we think we'll ever see a $10,000 Ethereum? Timing is going to play into this. A $10,000 Ethereum with what we're seeing toward the back end of this, yes, it could go parabolic. That most likely would be because of a Bitcoin run, not necessarily, unless they're doing something special on the rollout or moving the dates on Ethereum 2.0. So when you look at all those things, you look at the competition of where Avalanche, you look at Polygon, you also look at projects that are supporting the ZK rollups, things like Immutable X. Then you've got Solana, which eventually is going to come out of beta and probably be able to deal with a lot of their challenges that they're dealing with, which is primarily congestion and also to a certain level some security. All those guys, nobody's sitting still is the whole point. Nobody's sitting still, neither is Ethereum, but Ethereum moves at a much slower pace than some of these other projects. So when I look at my 2022 strategy, you guys are probably going to say, Paul, you're crazy. And that is, I'm going to reduce my position in Ethereum. I'm not getting rid of it. I still believe that Ethereum is a big part of the ecosystem. There are just so many new players, so many new projects that have so much light in front of them right now. Short-term wins are going to happen in other projects, I believe. And that is the reason. So I think right now, and I've talked about this before, is I'm probably going to end up reducing my position in Solana, reducing my position in Ethereum, and rebalancing that into some of these more faster moving chains, both from a development standpoint and also from what I see in terms of a potential growth opportunity. Most likely, AVAX will be a big part of that. Obviously, we've already talked about Polygon and why it's been doing what it's doing right now. I still am a big believer in Polkadot and where that might be going. And then you've got, of course, all of these ZK rollup projects that we really should be looking at a lot more on the show. And I promise you we're going to bring you some more stuff like that. But Immutable X is a perfect example of why and what we should be looking at, in addition to taking some of that back off the table and take your profits and go out and look for some reinvestments that can get you in 2, 3, 5x potential opportunities, because that's not likely going to happen right now with where Ethereum is. So just think about those things as you guys kind of put your research plan together for 2022. If you're looking at rebalancing, let me know in the comments. I'd like to know what you're rebalancing to. What is it going to look like in your first quarter? How are you going to rebalance this? Because it's kind of a new year. You're thinking about checking, and I know that's the way I do it. I want to see what I've done for the year. Obviously, that's how taxes work, but the whole point is that's an opportunity for you to maybe look at your entire portfolio, take some assessments, take a look at your growth potentials. Maybe you've rode that particular investment as far as you can. If you're a long-term holder and it's just a store of value for you, that's a different kind of strategy. If you're a dollar cost average person, a different kind of strategy. But if you are a trader, and when I say trader, meaning you're in and you're out, whether it's a week, 10 days, or 3 months, those kind of trades, those are opportunities to where you can get into a lot of new projects that are going to be moving, especially next year in gaming and metaverse. Big stuff. So make sure and stay tuned here for all those kind of updates. For sure, we're going to be doing a lot more around meta and gaming and really getting you guys into some of these new altcoins that I think are going to start surging very soon. If you have an idea for a show, drop it in the comments below. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, it's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath. Bing-a-ding-bing.